Dear colleagues, partners, esteemed administrative representatives, I would like to welcome you in my turn at the University of Thessaly and our summer Greek event of Invest. Thank you all for being here, especially our colleagues and friends from abroad, for collaborating with our UTH team in this ambitious project throughout the last few years. Special thanks are due to my colleague Nikos Samaras and his team for putting in all this hard work, the vision and the diligence required for grasping and implementing such complex and multi-leveled academic projects as the European University Alliance. Nicola, it has been a pleasure getting to know you and sharing your enthusiasm all these years. The European University Alliances initiative was introduced as part of the European Commission policy in higher education as early as 2017. It has been implemented up until now via 4 separate and consecutive funding calls that have resulted in a growing number of competitive collaborations across Europe, hopefully changing, or at least aspiring to change, the landscape of higher education and academic culture in our continent. The officially pronounced policy goal that grounded this new framework and supported the European University Alliances was to promote close collaboration between academic institutions in Europe, to promote European values, as always, enhance and encourage the mobility of students, researchers, and staff, and to revolutionize quality and competitiveness of knowledge production, research and education through collaboration in Europe. In that respect, the European University Alliances initiative is obviously a continuation and an integral part, I would say, of the decades-old Erasmus Plus vision that has sought at promoting wide-range teaching and research collaborations between academics, students, and researchers across Europe, but also globally. Funded, in fact, under the umbrella of Erasmus Plus, the European University Alliance so much more. The two distinctive characteristics of this enterprise are, I believe, the following. First, long-term, stable institutional collaboration. The alliances are based on the strong commitment of otherwise independent and well-established, both nationally and internationally, academic institutions to create common visions, to design and implement hybrid academic practices, and to often, allow me the word, fabricate, in the good sense of the word, transnational policy tools that never existed before. Long-term commitment leading, among others, to degree awards on undergraduate, graduate, and PhD level is an intrinsic and more or less unprecedented enterprise in Europe. The prospect of European university alliances involving into independent legal entities, still in process and in progress, is a unique development in policy and practice, bearing the potential to make a revolution, really, in higher education and research in Europe as such. We shall see. The second characteristic of intrinsic characteristic of European alliances is collaboration through competitiveness, a contradiction in terms, in a sense. The selection and funding of European university alliances are based on excellence and merit in two respects. Excellence of the national institutions involved and scholarly merit of the specific projects that are thematically focused in ways that support the idea that collaboration is not just aimed at providing overall generic knowledge, but more importantly, at producing knowledge, expertise, training, and education on cutting-edge subjects that powerfully and bravely address real problems, local communities, and challenges at a global level, such as the sustainability in the case of our Invest Alliance, to which I will return shortly. The initiative to create long-term commitment to academic collaboration with the aim of eventually establishing new independent intra-European university institutions is somehow unprecedented in Europe, extremely ambitious, I would say, and experimental. The only two previous cases that I can think of that have served similar in their differences goals and come to my mind are the European University Institute in Florence, Italy, my own alma mater Studiorum, founded in 1972, and the Central University Institute in Vienna and Budapest, founded, if I'm not mistaken, in 1991. Those are both highly esteemed academic and research institutions aimed at providing graduate and PhD programs in specific areas of study. Both of these institutions were founded in a top-to-bottom process, from scratch, that is, in order to serve a vision of a distinctively European higher education at moments of political tradition and social change, the 70s and the 90s. Yet, the nascent European university alliances constitute a by far much more ambitious and braver initiative. The initiative here is to mobilize bottom-up in a new way the vast and centuries-long higher educational capacity of Europe. Europe, I remind you, the home that gave birth to the university as a novel and powerful historical institution of social change and cultural advancement on a global level as early as the 19th century AD. Mobilizing today our tremendous and massive European academic capacity in a bottom-up process from the universities to transnational institutions of encouraging and supporting existing institutions to collaborate and commit towards the common goal to create something bigger and different than the sum of our separate capabilities is, I believe, a great challenge, but also a huge bet for the future of Europe in the emerging global landscape of knowledge-based policies and knowledge-intensive social and economic advancement. In this respect, I want to share with you today my sincerest sense of pride and responsibility that our universities, partners of Invest, present here today, we all participate dynamically and responsibly, I want to believe, in this great experiment in our effort to co-create our future academic traditions to be. Internationalization. This difficult to pronounce word for all of us, even for native speakers, has recently become nevertheless a buzzword in academic policies and politics worldwide. There are many meanings and several strategic choices that are derived from the various definitions and understanding of the word and its essence. Some facts. The academic world has historically already been international. Even in the educationally most nationally centered 19th century, knowledge production has always employed and developed practices that superseded national borders and often politics. And this, despite the fact that science has often in history been weaponized in order to serve brutal national politics, such as war, destruction, and annihilation of the enemy. Scholars and scientists, not always one and the same thing, have always been international in the sense that we, have belonged to a more or less elite and privileged social groups, a fact that has traditionally provided us with the ability to travel across borders and, most importantly, to read and study across borders. Knowledge is ideas and information, and ideas and information travel. They travel fast, even faster in our digital age, even in circumstances under which physical mobility of people is technically constrained, as in the recent experience of the great pandemic. The high density of mobilities that characterize our contemporary world requires universities to develop tools and practices that ensure that we educate and train young people as citizens, scholars, and practitioners who have or will have the capabilities to live and act in a global and mobile landscape. Thus, internationalization is not and cannot, and I believe should not, be diminished to a narrow and short-sighted vision to quote-unquote attract and increase the number of our foreign students in our universities. Much differently, internationalization today entails and requires practices that will allow us to change the content of education, to design new curricula, teaching and research methods, and social skills that provide both domestic and international students alike with global capacities and capabilities. Even more so, since the distinction between domestic and international, especially within the European context, is soon to be, if not abolished, at least blurred beyond recognition. In this respect, internationalization is by definition an all-inclusive, bottom-up process of transformation of higher education. In terms of policy, it does require substantial public investment in human resources and infrastructure. But most importantly, it does require a long-term commitment in brave and experimental attempts to restructure the very content and form of advanced teaching and research. Invest. As an experiment in higher education, INVEST has adopted a thematic approach to higher learning, teaching, and research. Learning is organized around the core theme of sustainable regional development. Since the early 20th century, sustainability, and more recently resilience, has been a core concept for the development of research, theory, practice, and techniques across disciplines and areas of study. Understanding the world as a space marked by a certain degree of scarcity of resources, disciplines ranging from philosophy, history, and economics to biotechnology, life sciences, and environmental studies have addressed the various aspects of the feasibility, attainability, and prospect of managing resources and life as such in sustainable ways, which means in ways that can guarantee, in the best way possible, a future existence for all, for some, or for just a few. This depends on our ethics in the broad sense of the word, the approach, and the stance each one of us takes today. Needless to remind you all that back in the 1970s, in his prodigious by now lectures at the Collège de France, Michel Foucault pronounced the impetus to manage scarce resources via the management of population and territory as the holy grail of all modern governmentality and biopolitics. And I'm referring to the famous book, which I'm sure you all know, Security, Territory, Population, Lectures at the Collège de France, 1977-1978. In choosing to foreground sustainability as the core subject of our European University Alliance, we introduced, I believe, an experiment towards a total realignment of higher teaching and research, both in content and in form. Independent courses, but also degree-oriented curricula, are thematically rearranged and focused, not by subduing this disciplinarity to intersectionality, which would mean just another interdisciplinary program of studies, but by building up multidisciplinary capacities among departments and European institutions. Involving the local communities in this process is another innovative and promising mark of INVEST alliances that we intend, I believe, to develop and enhance. The possibilities here are endless, and I would invite you all to welcome Invest in our second and enlarged round, I believe, of funding, as a laboratory of experimental higher education at its best. Last but not least, the choice of sustainability as a core concept is pivotal, as it is closely related to the role that Europe itself, through our alliances, can assume in the global landscape of advanced research and higher teaching and learning. Europe and its regions, but also Europe itself as a region in the global setting, developing methods of research and teaching that can provide young people with knowledge and skills necessary for surviving our future and critically support social justice and resilience. As Europe today re-enters the global landscape, not anymore as a hegemonic power, but as a developing power itself, a rich post-colonial region of the world, focusing on regional sustainability as a core concept of education and knowledge production is, I believe, a very promising path that we need and we will pave, I hope, in the years to follow. Thank you all for being here today, but most importantly, thank you for working with you, and I wish us best success in our future.